Hey guys, today's video is actually going to be a different one. It's going to be about a pretty serious topic involving video games and how they've influenced me throughout the years. Now, the first time that I touched a video game was when I was 4 years old, and my life was forever changed. And throughout the years, I've noticed the attachment that I had to playing video games became stronger and stronger. So much that I have all these games behind me. Throughout the years, I've had so many countless memories of playing these video games. And some of the best years of my life were just spent sitting here on the floor on my summer nights playing games like Star Fox, Legend of Zelda, Super Mario, you name it, just countless hours. I'm glued to my TV, and I will never forget those moments. And we've had some good times and bad times with video games throughout the years. And I noticed that the influence of games on me has actually started to affect who I am and exactly what my beliefs are and how I behave in everyday society. And that's where it's starting to become very tricky and a bit of a problem. Video games have made me gay. I have just discovered this recently, actually, in recent weeks. I've had thoughts that I normally never really had that are very sexual and different from what I'm used to. Now, you see, for the most part of my life, I've been a single, straight man. I've dated plenty of women. I've engaged in sexual intercourse with plenty of women, but I just recently realized that the more video games that I've played throughout the years, I've seen an increased influence on me to be a homosexual. Very homosexual, in fact. The more games I played, the more that I felt that they were causing me to do things that were homosexual. And it's honestly time to put a stop to me playing video games. So, I know I've been covering a lot of video games throughout the last few years on this channel. I'm afraid that I'm going to just stop because it's not very good for me to keep continuing playing video games if it's affecting me this way. If immediately right now you think I sound completely psychotic and that I'm not making any sense and that there's no way in hell that video games could cause somebody to be homosexual just by playing them all the time, I want you to take the word homosexual out of the sentence, video games made me homosexual, and replace it with violent. Video games made me violent. Think about it. Video games made me violent. So if video games made me gay or video games made me homosexual, affected you to the point where you thought I was a total moron or an idiot or that I had no evidence or basis for making that statement, I want you to realize that the statement of video games made me violent is just as equally stupid. And why do I bring this argument up? Because this week, on Thursday, President of the United States and a lot of government officials of the United States of America are going to be meeting with a lot of leaders in the video game industry about whether video games are violent and the effects that they have on people, most notably children. Because let's talk about it. Video games are for kids. There's been a lot of shootings as of late in the United States. I don't want to get too political, even though this is a very touchy subject for some. I want you guys to know right from the beginning in regards to my stances on guns and gun control. I am a firm believer in the Second Amendment. I have a concealed carry license. I have guns, and I believe in the right to bear arms. But I just wanted to touch base on a few things, and I'm not making this a gun control argument or a gun, problem argument. I don't want any of that argument on here. This is in regards to how video games influence people to become violent. Now, I'm not an expert in human psychology or violent, in human beings and stuff, but I do know that the argument of do video games cause violence has been around for a long time. I believe over 20 years to be exact. The earliest instance that I can remember is when Mortal Kombat first came out, and it was very controversial. And then we also have Night Trap that caused a lot of issues in regards to like stimulated rape and stuff like that. And then a few more years down the line, there was the Columbine High School shooting where Doom was attacked by the government, saying that it was what was caused all these the violent triggers for the shooters in that instance. And those are all reasonable arguments and stuff, but for the fine line between just blaming video games slowly and saying maybe there's a possibility there is very thin. And a lot of stuff that's been said recently has bases for no evidence. There's no basis on the evidence or the argument, the statements. You get what I'm trying to say. If somebody makes a blanket statement like video games make people violent, there's really no solid proof. There has been studies. I do know that a huge chunk of the American base does play games on their TVs, their computers, consoles, their phones. Video games are everywhere. They're not going anywhere. It's as big of a medium of entertainment as movies, TV, and film are. Now, shootings have been happening a lot in the news. We've been hearing about shootings in the news. I think mostly it's because it's been in schools and, like churches. Of course, that's going to be publicized. But I think overall, guns, as far as being used to murder people, is not as high as it once was in the United States. It's just video games are a huge scapegoat in this problem, and they always have been and always will be. I have no idea why. I mean, we got ESRB ratings that tell people exactly what's in a video game, whether it's violent, whether it's comic mischief, whether it's E for everyone, and, it just seems every few years this attack on video games comes out, and there's actually been no solid proof. I've looked at some info on some studies. Let me just pull out my phone just to give you guys some of the stuff that I've seen just Googling around. I do know the American Psychological Association, their official stance on video game and media violence as it relates to real-world violence is that playing video games can lead to aggression, but that there's insufficient evidence to form a link between gaming and violence. So they do acknowledge that video games and media can increase aggression, but that, to me, aggression is not always violence, if that makes any sense. Somebody could be aggressive in their attitude and in their nature, but not everybody that's aggressive is going to go out and shoot somebody or stab somebody. And that's where the aggression-violence line is starting to get a little blurry when it comes to lawmakers in our country, at least in the United States. I don't know how it is all around the world, but I know in the United States this is a pretty big, touchy subject, especially since the meetings this week. Now, I also looked up some other info. There's a professor at Villanova University named Patrick Markey, and he says he believes a link between playing video games and increased aggression exists, but it doesn't equate to the kind of violence that occurred recently in Parkland, which that was a shooting that happened a couple of weeks ago. For almost 20 years, violence and video games have always been attributed to each other. I believe, as far as the belief that violence attributed directly just from video games is not fair, because children do not consume just video games. I mean, if you look at some of the most popular movies today, it's the Marvel movies. What do superhero movies have? Explosions, guns, violence, car crashes, fighting, you name it. Sure, they mostly are PG-13, but it's still a form of violence, and I feel that there's a double standard with movies where as long as a movie doesn't involve heavy sex scenes, it's appropriate for kids, but is it really? If we're really going to go in depth and say that video games aren't appropriate for children, then how come the government doesn't blame movies or TV or even music? I know music has come under fire a few times in the past, especially in the 90s during, like the early rap, like NWA and all that. But it just seems that video games are being attributed for a lot of the bad things that happen in this world. And there is no solid evidence. There's studies, like I mentioned, and even they say there is a link between aggression and violence, but it can't be attributed to just solely video games. And, you know, again, I know I use the analogy of video games made me gay. I just want to say, if I offend anybody for that, I'm sorry. I have a lot of gay friends, and I was just using that as an example to show how exaggerated that term is compared to how exaggerated video games lead to violence. And, you know, I'm not no expert, again, as I said, to things like this, but I just felt with this conference coming up this week that this would be a good discussion. I know I'm going to offend at least half of you. Nobody is going to be happy watching, you know, you can't make everybody happy with a discussion that's as dividing as this is. Let's just say my stance is it's very tragic when stuff happens, and there should be gun control, and I'm a believer in carrying, and something does need to be done. But the one thing that doesn't need to be done is to place the blame on video games alone. Place blame on lawmakers that refuse to do certain things to adjust how guns are accessed. Place blame on security of buildings like schools. Place blame on mental healthness. Place blame on movies and TV. But the argument that video games alone, and that being the main thing that the government is looking at, kind of pisses me off. And this is coming from somebody that's been in Texas that was raised as a conservative. So just to touch base on this, guys, I hope you guys really see the point that I was trying to make. I know it was a bit clickbaity, but I just wanted to kind of also bring a serious discussion into light. If I offended you, if you don't like this topic, if you want to unsubscribe, I understand completely. I know not all of you guys are going to like it, but I just wanted you guys to kind of see a different type of serious video brought to this channel. Guys, this will probably be the only time I touch on an issue like this, so I don't know. I'm not going to apologize because it's my right and my freedom of speech to make a video about it. But guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion at least. Comment down below. Please keep the hate and negativity to a minimum. I'm not going to take bullying or fighting amongst each other in the comments. I will censor those that go a little bit too overboard. Not just because I don't believe in freedom of speech, but that I want a good, healthy discussion down below in this video. Don't place blame on each other. Don't fight. We're all gamers, what it comes down to. If you're watching this video, you're a gamer just like me. And this whole attack on video games is going to affect all of us, no matter if we're left-wing or right-wing. So guys, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next video. Have a great day.